Welcome to week 7. This week, we're going to be talking about the biological person. We will explore how biological factors influence human behavior, an essential aspect of our holistic approach in social work. So, what you'll find is that although we are not doing a biology class and you don't need to learn every single part of the body, the brain, what you'll find out is the brain is really essential, and just understanding how mental health disorders, how systematic racism, how different things impact, how different traumas impact the body. It's going to be kind of what you'll be learning for this week. Um, One of the things you're going to learn is epigenetics, and it's really, really something that is cutting edge, I would say, in social work and in just understanding why things happen, generational, kind of how intergenerational patterns. Epigenetics also looks at that as well. And we're going to look at health disparities and how what impacts biological health, which includes social and economic inequalities. We're going to look at how that impacts biological health as well. So, you have your readings. Hopefully, you're starting to get a routine. You have your presentations and knowledge checks. You have your student facilitated discussion. So, you'll be looking out for that on Monday by 2 p.m. There's one other activity besides the facilitated discussion, and that's going to be on epigenetics. So, as you look at that assignment, you're going to be just really thinking about health disparities and how epigenetics impacts that. You're going to be watching some videos as well. And so wanted to kind of connect this to social work and then also to your past assignments. Considering health disparities is crucial for social workers because these disparities often stem from systematic inequalities and could significantly impact our clients' overall well-being. By understanding biological, environmental, and social determinants of health, social workers can advocate for equitable access to resources, tailor interventions to address specific needs, and work towards reducing systemic barriers that contribute to health disparities. So, basically, what that means is that we need to look at the broader picture, right? I think that what we want to understand is not only the individual things that impact behavior, but also the systematic things, right? Um, so, often we blame the client and we say they're not trying hard enough or they need to pull up by their bootstraps, right? Our Protestant work ethic. If you can think about that, um, it's really about that. That's where that saying comes from, right? Pull up by your bootstraps, just work harder. But that's not always the case, right? There's systematic barriers, and we know how it contributes in terms of racism. We know how it contributes or really is a barrier to certain things. But what this is going to talk about is how it's also a barrier to health as well. Um, Understanding the interplay between environmental factors, biological processes, and intergenerational trauma is essential for social workers aiming to address health disparities. And when we say health, we mean physical health, but also how this impacts a person's mental state as well. This knowledge will enable you to develop holistic interventions that consider both individual and systematic factors contributing to a client's health. This module builds upon previous assignments that explored the psychological and social dimensions of human behavior, emphasizing the importance of how these are all connected and impact each other. The other thing I wanted to definitely go over as well is going to be your midterm. So, your midterm is coming up. As discussed in the last announcement, there's a part one and a part two to your midterm. They're both all due, like everything is due every week on that Sunday. It's due on 3/16. And then um, you have part one, which is a open book test. Um, it is timed 60 minutes. There's 20 questions. So it's not a lot of questions. Your second part is an essay. So I wanted to provide you, and I did provide you some guidance on what to do for part one and part two. And so I wanted to just go over those really quickly in terms of what you need to study. So, what you'll see is that we have gone over quite a bit. As you have discussed, it is a lot of information. So, you want to go over the theories that we've gone over so far, which is outlined in the study guide. You also want to make sure you are understanding social and racial identity, right, in terms of the theories that we've also gone over. Um, Developmental theories and life course perspective. Um, all of those things kind of came into play in terms of stress and coping. You want to understand and just review your types of coping that we have gone over. The ecological systems theory. And so those are the things you kind of want to just touch on for your exam. And then we have part two, which I provided you the instructions ahead of time because it I don't think the instructions have opened yet for you to look at. But the questions, there are a lot of questions, but again, this is why I wanted to make sure that you were understanding how to apply theory. So I kept harping on it and I kept commenting on it because your midterm is going to be given an overview of the theory that you're going to choose. Focusing on the theory, you're going to look at the history of the theory. And typically, there sometimes are multiple theorists. There'll be original, and then there'll be ones that will like modify the theory. um, Talk about how it relates to human behavior and how many dimensions it hits, right? Because so far we've talked about several dimensions of human behavior. Um, Look at how it is with diversity. So the first part is really like a historical part, just giving information. Four is like you're starting to critique it a little bit. Um, Describe the testability or empirical support of your theory. In other words, to what extent can theories, concepts, and propositions be observed, corroborated, or refuted? How much research is there supporting this theory? So you're going to go onto your research site, look up your theory, and just see what has been written on it to see how it can be measured, right? How can we measure the effectiveness of this theory? Um, And so you're going to be looking that up. And that can be a little bit more difficult um, to discuss. And so if you need further guidance on that, please let me know. How would you use this theory to assess a client? Okay. According to this theory, what are the aspects of the person and environment to be assessed, right? So not just what is it, right? Our theories are going to tell us why the problem exists. So if you're talking about how would you use the theory to assess a client, you want to first talk about what the theory looks at. So if I use attachment, right? If I'm assessing a client, the areas I'm going to look at for a client is going to be their bond, I might look at parenting style, right? Because all of these things are attachment. Okay. I'm also going to look at if there are any consistencies or inconsistencies with the caregiver, right? How trustworthy is that caregiver? Are there any mental health issues, any substance use issues? Because those issues can impact the stability of the relationship in terms of the bond. So I'm going to look at that because all that impacts attachment. And then I might look at their attachment style based upon those aspects. If I were to apply it to an actual client, then I would look at I would first identify what the issues are, the behaviors, how they relate to attachment, um, and then we would discuss number seven, which is what is the intervention. So if I'm saying that my client has a insecure attachment, whichever type it is, then how can I address that, right, in terms of interventions? And so it really depends on the family dynamics and kind of what's going on. Typically, if there's an insecure attachment, there's some type of issue with maybe availability, like I said, mental health or maybe substance use happening, or maybe the caregiver is not able to, the mom or dad may not be able to care for the child. So I'm looking at all those kind of interventions. If there's um, some other things going on. Normally, therapy would be an intervention for trying to strengthen a bond between two, right? Family therapy. But there might be some other things that I can do that are more like on the everyday level that will improve their relationship, right? The bond of their relationship. Eight, what is or are the most important aspects of intervention or practice to evaluate as evidence of success? In other words, how will you evaluate if your chosen intervention is working, right? So if I'm saying I'm going to do family therapy, how do you know that's working? How will you measure their relationship and bond in terms of looking at it through that lens, right? And number nine is going to be let's apply your chosen theory to a case. Um, and then it talks about Heidi. And some of this you've already done, right? You've already done some of this. So it seems really long. So that's why I wanted you to, if you wanted to, you could get started on it now, right? That's why I gave you the instructions early because if you want to kind of work on maybe one question here and one another question there, you can slow it down versus, having only a week to do it. You can space it out a little bit, like we talked about in terms of some steps of really understanding how to kind of get through the course and how to do your schedule. So, again, if there are any parts of the midterm that you still are um, trying to figure out, let me know. And I can provide more instruction. Again, it is a little hard to know exactly which parts of the instructions are unclear. So more communication. Like if you read it once, you read it twice, and you're like, Dr. Boone, I still don't understand. What are you asking me? Um, then we can discuss it and talk about it um, further. So just let me know, and we will do that. Have a great week, and can't wait to continue to read your responses and review and grade your assignments.